Good day to our panelists and to our research advisor, Mr. Barcelona, and also to my co-researchers. But first, let us introduce ourselves.
I am Althea Alencastre.
I am Marianelet Barte.
I am Daniel David.
And I am Sandra Pascual.
Today, we are going to present the effectiveness of hydroponic nutrient film technique in growing lettuce, Lactuca sativa.
We will first discuss the introduction in order to provide the background of the chosen topic and introduce the problem in the study. In the introduction, the following topics in the bullet form were mainly discussed. Horticulture, which is defined as the science and art of growth, sustainable production, and utilization of highly valuable and intensively cultivates food and ornamental plant, is an essential aspect of living as it provides food necessary for survival and also is proven to be functional in many different ways. In line with horticulture, there are two methods that can be used in crop production. This is the conventional planting and hydroponic method of planting. The second and third paragraph contains the brief description of both methods. In conventional gardening, or also known as the traditional gardening, soil is required as a medium and source of nutrients for plant growth. This is commonly used by many. However, as its downside, this type of planting requires a reasonable amount of effort and time in order to sustain plant development. And also, it may not be able to meet the food demand that is increasing in the pandemic situation. On the other hand, hydroponic system is a soilless method of planting where it is dependent on water with nutrient solution for survival. Factors that affects plant grown hydroponically are water, temperature, light, oxygen, and support structure. In the fourth paragraph, it implies that artificial light can be used as a source of light in hydroponics. It states that it can be operated indoors and outdoors. But the main difference is where they get their source of light. In outdoors, sunlight is their main source. In indoors, artificial light can be used. When it comes to type of plants, vegetable crops and herbs are usually planted in hydroponic system. For instance, lettuce is one of the crops that is suitable for hydroponic system due to its shallow root system and low vegetable height. To provide some background history, hydroponics culture is already evident before, as early as 600 BC, from the hanging gardens of Babylonia and the floating gardens of China. As time evolved, hydroponic culture has improved and more systemized and organized structures and techniques were developed. And throughout the years, hydroponics has shown significant benefits to plant growers, which includes water efficiency, increase of crop production, and its rapid growth rate compared to soil-based gardening. However, limited researches about hydroponics effectivity here in the Philippines open hesitation about the validation of its viability. That is why researchers decided to focus on the topic, which compares the effectivity of hydroponic system from traditional planting. They aim to perform an experiment by planting Estrosa lettuce using NFT hydroponic technique and soil-based gardening and observe the difference in terms of effectivity.
For the theoretical framework, this study is anchored in the theory of modern hydroponics. During the earliest times, through the consistent stream of water with wealthy minerals and oxygen, the people can do plant crops. It happens as the nutrients are made available directly in the water. In the most abstract sense, a hydroponic system requires a nutrient-rich water supply, a means of oxygenating the water supply and to transport the water to the plants. And this practice of planting without soil has been developed as time passes by. In connection with the theory, the nutrient film technique is a type of hydroponics that needs consistent flow of water. And in order for a plant to grow in water, it will be needing the support, nutrients, light, right temperature, and space to grow. And to successfully establish the hydroponics, The grow lights help the plants as they are solely responsible for the photosynthesis of the plants, which helps them make their food.
In the conceptual framework, the researchers will use the input, process, and output to illustrate the process of the study. The researchers intend to use the nutrient film technique hydroponic system. Thus, they will use the materials such as plastic storage box, sponges, mesh net pot, and air pump. The researchers will use the T8 full spectrum grow light, Estrosal lettuce seeds as the variable, and master blend 4-18-38, calcium nitrate, and magnesium sulfate as the nutrient solutions. In process, the researchers will set up the NFT hydroponic system, plant the Estrosal lettuce seeds, and will constantly monitor the plants. Lastly, in output, the researchers will observe the changes that happen to the plant throughout the given time frame. This research aims to know the effectivity of using hydroponic NFT gardening in growing lettuce. The researchers strive to answer the following questions. Number 1. How well does the NFT hydroponic prove its effectivity in terms of growing lettuce, in terms of growth rate, and usage of water? Number 2. What are the differences in the physical properties of Estrosal lettuce grown in hydroponics compared to the soil-based method? And lastly, in what aspects do hydroponic gardening method provides convenience compared to the soil-based gardening?
In the scope and delimitation of the study, the research will be based on the variety studies and public research on the internet. This research will be restricted in accordance with the period of time given and the specific place where it will be performed. The NFT hydroponic method, master blend 4-18-38, calcium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, water quantity and temperature, and the T8 full spectrum growth light are the independent variables involved in the analysis, while the dependent variables are the growth time of the Estrosal lettuce. The research experiment will be performed in the same area. Depending on the study's outcome, the study will operate for a minimum of 3 months. This research will also concentrate mainly on the effect of the NFT hydroponic system on the growth of Estrosal lettuce seeds. 72 mesh net containers, plastic storage box, water and air pump, sponges, master blend 4-18-38, calcium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, and the T8 full spectrum are the research components to be used, as the use of other materials depends on the study. It is strictly not permitted to manipulate the collected data and place chemical on Estrosal lettuce, which is unnecessary and would affect its development, as they would have a direct effect on the study results. The sprouts are inflexible and it is difficult to measure inside the sponge, so the calculation would not be as precise.
Significance of the study. In schools, we will be able to conduct diversity of researches that will enhance the students' researching skills, and they will discover lots of information through the study, expanding their comprehension about different things. For the communities, they will gain knowledge just like everyone else. At the same time, they will be able to use a modernized way of planting suitable for the modern era. This is beneficial for the environment since planting will be accessible to many Metro Manila residents, even those of the same environment as Metro Manila. Water sources for hydroponics will be of no hindrance as our country is tropical and it does not require an enormous amount of water. If this research will be studied in depth in the succeeding years, future researchers may come up with more questions that will enlarge their capacity of learning as they seek for information to acquire for possible solutions to different problems.
To briefly conclude the chapter 2, here are the main points. In the first paragraph, it was mentioned that nutrient solution is the primary source of nutrients in hydroponics, which contains the main nutrients needed for plant development. The 3 nutrient mixes include the NPK or nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium mix, which are the main nutrients, and calcium nitrate and magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt, which are the secondary nutrients. Although there is a general formula guideline in ratio proportion of nutrients in the solution, it still varies in other specific growing conditions. It was also discussed in the first paragraph that researchers found out from previous researches that NFT hydroponics is one of the most common and accessible hydroponic type, and that just as other hydroponic system types, it provides nearly identical advantage for plant growers. That is why researchers decided to use this in the experiment. For the second paragraph, this mainly deals with vegetable crops and herbs as one of the best suitable crops that can be grown hydroponically. The information gained from the past researches supports that lettuce is one of the best examples in carrying a research for hydroponics NFT. Also, through the researches, researchers were able to pick out the most convenient plant that can be planted in the experiment, which is the lettuce. Lastly, the third paragraph in the synthesis talks about the artificial light as an alternative for sunlight. Studies reveal that artificial light, particularly in lettuce production, allows plant growers to control the metabolic responses for the plant, which can be helpful in obtaining optimum quality produce. From that existing knowledge, researchers can safely rely on artificial light as the source of their light in lettuce production. For Chapter 3, we first begin with the research design. In the experiment, through experiment design will be used, where a treatment will be applied to the experimental group while the control group will receive a standard treatment. The treatment is the application or use of nutrient solution as a source of minerals and nutrients necessary for plant development, such as Estrosa lettuce. The experimental group in this experiment is the hydroponically grown Estrosa lettuce, therefore is the group that will receive the treatment. On the other hand, the control group which will receive the standard treatment is the soil-based grown Estrosa lettuce, as it will only get its nutrient from the soil. Under the true experimental design, researchers will also apply the post-test controlled group design, where the randomly assigned subjects, which is the Estrosa lettuce, will undergo a test by measuring the height of the plant in terms of centimeters and the numbers of leaves, and also observing the color of its leaves every week after the application of the treatment.
Test subjects, the researchers will use the Estrosa lettuce seeds to assess the effectiveness of the NFT hydroponic system. The Estrosa lettuce seeds were chosen as test subjects for the reason that their growth rate is relatively faster than the other plants. The lettuce seeds takes about 6 to 8 weeks to reach full harvest size. Sampling technique. The researchers will use the judgment sampling technique. Judgment sampling is a type of sampling where the researchers rely on the judgment when selecting elements of samples that will take part in the study. The researchers chose to grow Estrosa lettuce seeds because this plant takes approximately 6 to 8 weeks to reach full harvest size. The researchers will also use the convenient sampling since the lettuce chosen for its availability and grows faster than other plants, therefore more convenient for the researchers to use for the experimentation process.
In the data gathering procedure, the researchers obtained data using information from the documentation of plant growth by natural gardening and the use of hydroponics. The researchers would consist of two parts, the natural planting and the hydroponic gardening method. Using natural gardening and the use of hydroponic instrument in separate subparts relevant to the technique, the researchers use accessible knowledge that will help their point of view. Different records, including blogs, research papers from known experts, feasibility reports, and other online sources of data that may be useful in this case. For research, different sources should be used to ensure the reliability of the data. Researchers will use their test subjects as their basis, without an interview and questionnaire that are not necessary for their study topic. The technique that will be used by the researchers will allow the researchers to actively monitor the conduct of the study. The researchers will observe the variation that will occur and the physical appearance of the plant's growth. This is proposed to be used with the use of master blend for 1838, calcium nitrate, and magnesium sulfate at the time of plant growth because there are insufficient nutrients in the hydroponic because it is water-based and would act as the main source of plant nutrients.
For the data gathering instrument, there will be two sections. First is the Estrosa lettuce seed planted in nutrient film technique hydroponic, in which it uses rich water supply, and the second one is Estrosa lettuce planted in the natural way, which is the use of soil. The researchers will be needing a metal ruler to measure the growth of the leaf in centimeters. For the number of leaves, we will use eye observation to count it, and also for the color, the leaves will be classified by the following: green for relatively healthy, yellow insufficient nutrients, and brown or black for rooting lettuce plant. And lastly, the data analysis. Observational data analysis will be carried out in the study, which include taking note of changes in plants, growth, and physical properties. And that concludes our presentation.